The deep black of space was quiet. No patrol ships, no merchant traffic, only the endless stars. But in that silence, sensors on the edge of the Zorath Empire began to blink. Something had appeared. Suddenly, without warning, not a fleet, not a convoy, just one single ship. But it was unlike anything the Zorath scanners had seen before. The operator on the listening station frowned. He checked the readings twice. "It's human," he whispered. The word alone made the other crew members look up in shock. Humans were supposed to be far away from this sector. They had no business this deep in Zorath territory, and yet, here it was, a massive warship, hanging. In space, like a sleeping giant, the ship did not move, did not send any friendly codes. No identification, no request to dock. It simply waited. The crew at the station called the nearest fleet command. Within minutes, an entire armada was mobilized. Alien warships began to appear on the tactical screens. First a handful of destroyers, then heavy cruisers, then battleships. They surrounded the lone human vessel from every side. The Zorath commander laughed when he saw the single ship. One ship. "This is all they send?" "They insult us," he growled. The officers laughed with him, certain that the battle would be quick. But then a message came through. It was short, calm, and cold. "This is Captain Rourke of the UNS Ironclad. Leave now, or be destroyed." The alien officers froze for a moment. The voice carried no fear, no hesitation. It sounded like a man giving a simple fact. The Zorath commander smirked. "Transmit back. One ship cannot fight us all," he said. The reply came instantly. "You are wrong," Rourke's voice said. Then the channel went dead on the Ironclad's bridge. The crew worked in silence. Weapon systems lit up. Shields shifted to battle mode. Strange, glowing lines began to run across the ship's dark hull. They pulsed like the heartbeat of some great beast. No one spoke, not even the captain. Only the hum of power rising filled the air. Back on the alien flagship, the commander gave the order to advance. Dozens of ships moved forward, their weapons charging. From a distance, it looked like a swarm closing in on a lone prey. But the Ironclad did not move. It waited, still and calm, like a hunter letting its prey come closer. The first alien ship fired. A bright spear of plasma streaked through space. It struck the human warship's shield and vanished. Not exploded, not deflected. It simply vanished. The Zorath gunners fired again and again. Every shot disappeared into the shimmering blue shield. Confusion spread through the alien fleet. "Is this some kind of wormhole defense?" an officer muttered, but before they could analyze it, the Ironclad struck back. From its forward cannon, a single beam of pale light shot out. It wasn't loud, it wasn't bright, but when it hit the nearest Zorath destroyer, the ship simply came apart. No explosion, no flames, just gone in an instant. The alien fleet fell silent. On every channel, voices whispered in disbelief that that was one shot. On the Ironclad, Captain Rourke leaned forward. "Target the lead cruiser," he said. Another beam fired. Another ship dissolved into drifting debris. The Zorath commander roared in anger. "All ships, fire everything." Missiles, plasma, blasts, railgun rounds. The void lit up with deadly fire. It was enough to destroy an entire human fleet. But the Ironclad's shield absorbed it all. The glowing patterns on its hull pulsed faster, as if feeding on the attack. The alien crews began to feel it, that cold, heavy fear in their chests. This was not a normal human ship. This was something else, something they didn't understand. Some whispered that it was a ghost ship from ancient wars. Others swore humans had found forbidden technology beyond the galaxy's edge. Whatever it was, it stood alone against their entire fleet, and it was not losing then. As the alien weapons slowly fell silent, the human ship moved, not fast, but steady. I'd turned to face the heart of the fleet, the alien flagship. On the bridge of the flagship, the commander clenched his jaw. This is impossible," he whispered. And somewhere in the back of his mind, for the first time in his career, he wondered if this battle was already lost. The Ironclad kept coming, silent, steady, unstoppable. The crew of the alien flagship could see it now on their main screen, the strange, glowing hull, the smooth, cold lines of its design, and the feeling that it was watching them, judging them, and deciding their fate in the silence of space. The Zorath fleet began to realize the truth. They had made a mistake. A single human warship had entered their territory, and somehow it was winning. The Zorath commander stared at the lone human ship on his screen. It didn't move fast, didn't twist or dodge. It just stayed there, calm, still waiting. The commander's crew whispered among themselves. Some said it was broken and couldn't flee. Others said it didn't need to. The commander decided to end this. All forward ships. Move in and surround it, he ordered. Destroyers and cruisers closed the distance, from above, below, and both sides. They boxed in the human warship. The alien fleet's formation was perfect. It was a cage in space. No ship could escape such a trap. The commander grinned, certain the human vessel's fate was sealed. Inside the ironclad, the atmosphere was completely different. The crew moved with calm precision. No panic, no raised voices. The ship's tactical officer quietly reported, "Multiple enemy ships within optimal range." Captain Rourke nodded slowly. "Mark them," he said. On the holographic display, red targeting lines appeared, each one locked onto the weakest point of an enemy vessel. The alien fleet opened fire first. Missiles streaked across the void. Plasma bolts flashed like miniature suns. Railgun slugs shot forward at impossible speeds. It was the kind of barrage that had destroyed entire pirate armadas in seconds. But when the wave of destruction reached the ironclad, it simply disappeared. The alien gunners blinked in confusion. Every weapon impact melted into the ship's shield as if swallowed by water. There was no flash, no spark. The warship didn't even rock from the impact. The Zorath commander slammed his fist against the console. "More fire, more," he roared. But even as his ships obeyed, a cold voice broke into every channel. "This is your last chance," Captain Rourke said. The commander laughed. "You think one ship can?" He never finished the sentence. The ironclad fired. Not a storm of missiles, not a wave of plasma, just a single thin beam of pale light. It cut through the darkness and touched the nearest destroyer. The alien crew didn't even have time to scream. Their ship folded inward like paper, then it was gone. No wreckage, no flames, only drifting dust where a warship had been seconds before. Shock rippled through the alien fleet. On every comm channel, voices shouted, "What happened? Where did it go? Did it jump?" "No," another voice whispered. "It's gone, completely gone." The Zorath commander felt his stomach tighten. He looked at the tactical display. One red dot, one of his ships had vanished, and the human vessel was already aiming. Again, another beam fired. Another cruiser vanished. This time, the aliens screamed before disappearing. The sound cut off so suddenly that the silence was worse than the noise. Inside the ironclad, Rourke gave quiet orders. "Shift to the next cluster. 3 ships." The tactical officer's hands moved over the controls. The warship rotated slightly. It was hunting, not fighting. Every shot was precise, deliberate, never wasting energy, never missing. The alien fleet tried to scatter. Destroyers darted sideways. Cruisers dove behind battleships. But the ironclad seemed to predict their moves. Its targeting system followed them no matter where they went. One shot, one kill, again and again.
Oh.
On the alien flagship, the commander's second-in-command whispered, "Sir, this isn't a battle. It's an execution." The commander glared at him. Silence. "Send in the interceptors. We'll overwhelm it at close range." Dozens of smaller fighter craft launched from carriers. They swarmed toward the human ship like angry insects. For a brief moment, the commander thought the tide might turn. Then the ironclad's hull shifted, panels slid open along its sides. Strange glowing shapes emerged, not missiles, but hovering orbs of blue light. They moved faster than the fighters could react. One orb touched a fighter's wing and the entire craft dissolved. Another orb sliced through 3 ships in a row before vanishing. In less than a minute, the entire interceptor wing was gone. The alien commander's confidence shattered. Every instinct told him to retreat, but retreating now would mean admitting fear to the entire fleet. He hesitated, and in battle, hesitation kills. The ironclad shifted its aim again. Its next beam struck the lead battleship, the largest ship in the formation. It vanished like all the others. The Zorath fleet's perfect formation was broken now. Gaps opened where ships had been seconds before. The human warship moved forward through the holes like a predator slipping through weeds. It never rushed, never wasted a shot. Every move was slow, inevitable, like it already knew the outcome. The alien commander's hands shook. He realized something. This wasn't just technology. This was strategy. The human captain wasn't firing wildly. He was choosing targets to break the fleet's will, destroying key ships, leaving others stranded, making the survivors believe escape was impossible. Another beam fired, another ship gone. The alien flagship shook as the crew shouted reports. Shields down on Sector 5. 2 more ships lost on the starboard side. They're targeting our carriers. The commander's mouth went dry. It was no longer a question of whether they could win. It was whether any of them would survive long enough to tell the tale in the human ship. It was still silent, still calm, as if this slaughter was nothing more than routine. The battlefield was chaos. Alien ships scattered in every direction. Some tried to hold the line, others broke formation and ran, no matter where they went. The human warship could find them, 1 shot, 1 kill, every single time. Inside the alien flagship, Commander Varel's face was pale. He stared at the tactical map. Dozens of red blips. His ships had already vanished. The survivors were panicking, their cum channels full of screams and confusion. Varel slammed his fist against the console. This is impossible. Find out how they're doing this. In the science bay of the flagship, a team of alien technicians worked frantically. Their scanners probed the human warship. Data streamed in power readings, shield harmonics, energy patterns. But none of it made sense. One technician looked up with fear in his eyes. Commander, this ship is not using any technology we know. Varel's voice was cold. Explain. The technician swallowed. Their main weapon doesn't register as plasma or railgun or even beam energy. That's something else. Something we can't measure. On the ironclad, Captain Rourke stood calmly on the bridge. Next target, he said. The tactical officer locked on. The ship's forward cannon began to hum. Glowing blue lines spread across the hull, pulsing with light. Each pulse felt like the heartbeat of a living creature. The crew worked without fear. They trusted their captain and their ship. They knew what this weapon could do, even if no one else in the galaxy understood it. When the beam fired, space itself seemed to twist. To the naked eye, it looked like a thin streak of pale light. But the moment it touched the enemy ship, reality bent. The alien cruiser's hull rippled like liquid, then broke apart into drifting dust. It was as if the beam erased the ship from existence. No debris large enough to recover, no survivors. The fleet watching on their sensors could barely believe it. On the alien flagship, scientists spoke over each other in panic. This isn't just a weapon, it's rewriting matter. It's impossible. Nothing can erase a ship that size. Instantly, one older scientist looked grim. It's possible. If you tear it apart at the molecular level, the others fell silent. If that was true, the humans had a weapon that could unmake anything. Armor. Shields, even planets. The Zorath commander sent a message to the ironclad. This is Commander Varel of the Zorath Imperial Fleet. Identify the technology you are using, or face destruction. The reply came almost instantly. This is Captain Rourke. Your fleet is already destroyed. The channel closed. The alien commander's blood ran cold. It wasn't just arrogance. The human was speaking the truth. Their formation was shattered. Their ships were falling one by one, and nothing they did could stop it. Desperation made the commander give a risky order. All ships concentrate fire on the human vessel's weapon systems. Disable them if you can. The remaining battleships and cruisers turned all guns toward the ironclad's forward cannon. A storm of energy blasts lit up the darkness, but the human shields shimmered and swallowed every shot. The weapon continued to charge without interruption. Then it fired again. Another battleship was gone by now. Fear was spreading faster than orders. Some alien crews abandoned their posts. Others tried to jump to hyperspace without permission. Virel roared into the comms. "Return to your positions." That's an order. But no one wanted to fight a weapon they couldn't understand. A weapon that could erase them in a blink. Meanwhile, on the ironclad, Rourke's crew continued their work. No shouting, no chaos, just efficiency. They had trained for this. This was not a battle. It was a demonstration. The captain's strategy was simple. Break the enemy's spirit before breaking their fleet. The alien science team on the flagship made one last desperate attempt. They fed all their power into long-range scanners. This time, they focused not on the beam itself, but on the moments before it fired. And what they saw made them freeze. The space around the ironclad's cannon was warping. Particles bent toward. Light itself seemed to slow. One scientist whispered, "This isn't energy. It's gravity." Another corrected him. "No, it's worse. They've weaponized singularity physics, if that was true." The ironclad's weapon wasn't just firing light. It was releasing a controlled micro-black hole for a fraction of a second. Just enough to swallow a ship whole before collapsing harmlessly. To control such a thing was madness. To use it in battle was unthinkable. And yet here it was in the hands of humans. Virel realized the truth. No armor could block it, no shield could resist it, no maneuver could dodge it against this weapon. Numbers meant nothing. It didn't matter if he had 10 ships or 1,000. The result would be the same. Still, he couldn't bring himself to give the order to retreat. Not yet. Not while the ironclad was still coming closer. Not while its captain stood there, silent. Like a judge preparing to pass sentence, the weapon charged again. Its glowing hull lines pulsed brighter. Every alien ship in range scrambled to move out of its sights. But it didn't matter. The beam fired, and another ship was gone, somewhere, deep inside him. Virel knew this battle was already over, but he also knew something else. When word of this weapon spread across the galaxy, everything would change. Wars would be fought differently. Alliances would shift, and every species would ask the same question. If this is what one human ship can do, what happens when the rest of their fleet arrives? The Zorith Imperial fleet had never known fear like this. They had fought pirates, rebels, and even ancient war machines from forgotten empires, but never had they faced one single ship. And lost so badly, the ironclad moved slowly through. The chaos, its hull glowing faintly every few seconds. The forward cannon fired. And another Zorath warship simply vanished inside the alien flagship. Commander Virel's voice was hoarse from shouting orders. He called for formations. He demanded coordinated strikes. But his words no longer carried the same power. The crews were no longer listening. Fear had spread like a sickness, and once fear took root in a fleet, it was almost impossible to remove. On the comm channels, Virel could hear it. Officers whispering instead of speaking boldly. Captains asking permission to retreat, some even begging for mercy. One voice crackled through, "They're not even trying to kill us all at once. They're picking us off like prey." On the ironclad, Captain Rourke stood calm as ever. "Target the ships on the far right flank," he ordered. The tactical officer nodded. "They're trying to run." Rourke's eyes narrowed. "They won't get far." The beam fired again. A fleeing destroyer disappeared before it could make the jump to hyperspace. The sight of that strike shattered whatever discipline the Zorith flank had left. 4 ships broke formation completely and fled at full speed. They didn't ask for orders. They didn't care about dishonor. They just wanted to live. Other ships began to follow. The battle line crumbled like dry sand. Virel slammed his fist on the console so hard the screen flickered. "Cowards, get back here." But his voice only reached empty space. The fleeing ships had cut their comms. His second-in-command leaned close and spoke quietly. "Sir, they believe this fight is unwinnable." Virel turned sharply. "Do you believe that too?" The officer hesitated. "Yes." Meanwhile, across the fleet, panic was turning into chaos. A cruiser fired wildly into the dark, hitting one of its own ships. Another vessel overloaded its engines, trying to escape, and exploded. Fighter pilots abandoned their squadrons. Some ships even sent surrender signals. But the ironclad didn't respond to any calls. it just kept moving forward. The alien science team on the flagship made one last attempt to understand the weapon. They sent urgent warnings to the other ships. Do not try to shield against the beam. It is useless. Do not try to outrun it. It is faster than light. Itself, your only chance is to flee beyond its targeting range. But they all knew that wasn't truly a chance. The warship's range was far beyond anything they had seen before. On the bridge of the ironclad, the crew watched silently as the enemy fell apart. Rourke's first officer leaned toward him. "They're breaking, sir." Rourke didn't smile. "They broke the moment they underestimated us," he gestured toward the alien flagship in the distance. "Time to finish it." The ironclad adjusted course. Every alien sensor picked up the movement instantly. The human ship was now headed straight for the heart of their command, the flagship. For many alien captains, that was the final push they needed to run. Entire squadrons turned tail and accelerated away. Their commanders didn't even try to hide it anymore. In the flagship's war room, Varel's advisors argued over what to do. Retreat. Save the flagship before it's too late. No. If we run, they'll hunt us. Signal for reinforcements. There's no time. They'll be here in minutes. The arguments were pointless. They all knew the truth. The ironclad could reach them before help arrived. The alien commander finally gave a new order. All remaining ships form a defensive wall around the flagship. It was a desperate move. Ships moved in close. Overlapping their shields, they created a glowing barrier of energy between the human warship and their leader. It was the strongest defensive formation in the Zorath Navy. Against any normal enemy, it might have worked. The ironclad slowed slightly, its weapon charged. The blue hull lines glowed so brightly they were almost white, and then one beam fired. The lead battleship in the wall vanished instantly, the gap in the shield line exposed to cruisers behind it. They too were erased in the next shot. The defensive wall collapsed in less than a minute. At that moment, the last traces of discipline vanished. Ships broke away in all directions. Some accelerated toward deep space. Others tried to hide among the drifting wreckage. Many didn't even activate weapons anymore. They simply wanted to be invisible from the bridge of the ironclad. Rourke watched them scatter. "Fear spreads faster than fire," he said quietly. His crew didn't cheer. They simply prepared for the next order. Because they knew this wasn't the end, the flagship was still ahead of them. And the captain wasn't leaving until the message was clear. No one, no matter how powerful, could stand against humanity. The battlefield was almost silent now. Most of the Zorath fleet had either fled or been destroyed. Only a handful of warships still held position near the flagship. They were the loyal ones, or perhaps the most afraid of what their commander would do if they ran, but deep down, every one of them knew the truth. They were not guarding victory. They were guarding their own funeral on the bridge of the ironclad. Captain Rourke stood with hands clasped behind his back. The alien flagship was now the only major target left. It loomed ahead. Even the ironclad looked small compared to it, but size meant nothing. Now the crew had already seen what their weapon could do. Rourke's first officer spoke quietly. "They've pulled their ships in tight, sir. Close defense formation." Rourke's eyes stayed on the tactical display. "Good," he said. "Makes them easier to hit." Inside the Zorath flagship, Commander Varel paced the bridge. The glow of the human warship's weapon was now visible through the main viewport. He could feel his crew's fear without even looking at them. Every officer was stiff, their movements sharp and nervous. The tension was so thick it almost hummed in the air. Varel stopped pacing and turned to his weapons officer. "All batteries. Fire on my mark." His voice was steady, but his hands were clenched behind his back. The ironclad kept moving forward. Its glowing hull lines pulsed brighter with each passing second. Rourke gave the order, "Target primary weapons on the flagship. Fire when ready." The forward cannon hummed with a deep, resonant vibration. Then a beam of pale light shot across the void. The flagship's starboard battery erupted into fragments. Shards of metal spun into space, glowing with heat. Virels. Bridge shook violently. A warning siren screamed. "Starboard weapons offline." An officer shouted. Varel's eyes narrowed. "Return fire!" The flagship's guns unleashed everything. Plasma bolts streaked across the black. Missiles exploded in waves of orange and red. Railgun slugs cut through the void like silver streaks. It was a display of raw firepower that had broken enemy fleets before. But against the ironclad, it was nothing. The human ship's shields shimmered and swallowed every attack. The pale light of its weapon continued to charge. As if the alien barrage wasn't even happening, the crew of the ironclad worked in silence. They didn't cheer at each hit. They didn't laugh at the enemy's failure, just followed orders, precise, calm, and deadly. Another beam fired. This time, it struck the flagship's port engines. A massive section of the hull tore away, venting burning gas into space. The alien ship's speed dropped instantly. Inside the flagship, the shock was visible on every face. Damage reports came. In one after another, Engine 2 gone. Engine 3 offline. Life support failing on Deck 7. We've lost targeting control on port side. Varel gripped the railing so tightly his knuckles turned pale. "Keep firing. Keep firing." But the truth was, their firing made no difference. The ironclad was not slowing down. If anything, it was accelerating. Like a predator sensing the kill was close, Rourke gave his next order without raising his voice. "Bring us within close range. Target the bridge." His crew didn't hesitate. They knew what it meant. Destroy the bridge, and the battle would end instantly. The alien flagship tried to reposition. Its remaining engines flared as it turned desperately. But the ironclad matched its movement perfectly. Its cannon charged. The glow along its hull brightened to an almost blinding white. Varel stared at the human warship on the screen. In that moment, he understood something. The humans weren't just defending themselves. They were sending a message. This was a warning to the entire galaxy. Challenge humanity. And this is what you face, sir. They're targeting the bridge. His first officer shouted. Varel straightened his back. His voice was quiet but firm. "All crew, stand your ground." Some officers looked at him in disbelief. Others sat in silence, resigned to their fate. The ironclad fired. The beam hit the flagship's forward section. Light flared, and then the bridge. The command tower. The entire upper deck was gone. The massive ship shuddered. Without its command systems, its weapons fell silent. Its engines powered down. The once mighty flagship drifted slowly, a lifeless husk in the middle of a graveyard. Of burning wreckage on the ironclad, the crew reported. "Flagship destroyed, sir." Rourke looked at the drifting remains for a long moment. Then he gave his final order of the battle. "Cease fire. Let the survivors run. They'll spread the story." The alien ships that still lingered didn't wait for a second chance. Turned and jumped to hyperspace as fast as their damaged engines could manage. The battle was over. One warship had stood against an entire fleet and won. But Rourke knew this was not the end. Somewhere in the alien halls of power, commanders would already be planning their revenge, and when they returned, the humans would be ready. The black sea of space was quiet again. The roar of battle had faded, replaced by the faint hum of the ironclad systems. Wreckage drifted in every direction, glowing fragments of alien metal, shattered weapons, and the remains of proud warships that no longer existed. The Zorath flagship was a silent hulk now, its mighty presence reduced to a drifting shadow around it. The last surviving ships of the alien fleet made their choice. Some accelerated away at full power, fleeing deeper into their own territory. Others limped on damaged engines, leaking fire and gas into the void. Not a single one dared to turn and fight again. The retreat had begun, and it was total. On the ironclad's bridge, Captain Rourke stood before the main display. He watched without expression as dozens of red blips vanished one by one. Each blink on the radar meant another ship jumping to hyperspace. His first officer stepped closer. "They're gone, sir. No reinforcements incoming. No signs of regrouping." Rourke gave a slow nod. They've had enough. But the retreat wasn't fast or clean. The battlefield was littered with the dying, damaged cruisers drifted helplessly. Unable to make the jump, some sent out distress calls. Others simply floated in silence. Their crews staring at the ironclad from shattered viewports. They knew. The human warship could finish them at any moment, yet it didn't. Rourke's tactical officer asked the question that was on every crew member's mind. "Orders for the crippled ships, sir?" The captain's gaze stayed on the screen. "Let them live," he said quietly. "They'll spread the word better than wreckage ever could." The alien survivors were already whispering through their cums. Tales of the human ships impossible. Weapon. Stories of entire squadrons vanishing in a blink. Rumors that the ironclad could bend space itself in less than an hour. Those stories would reach the nearest Zorath outpost by the next day. They would reach the Empire's core worlds. By the end of the week, every corner of the galaxy would hear them. On one of the fleeing destroyers, a junior officer looked over. His shoulder at the shrinking dot of the ironclad, his voice trembled as he spoke to his captain. "They're not chasing us." "Why?" The captain didn't answer for a long moment, then he said, "Because they don't need to. They've already won." Back aboard the ironclad, the crew worked in calm efficiency. Weapons were powered down. Shields lowered, damage control. Teams checked the hull, but the truth was the human ship was almost untouched. Not a single section had been breached. Not one major system was offline. It had faced an entire fleet and come out of the fight without even limping. Some of the younger crew members whispered among themselves. They knew they had been part of something history would remember. Some called it the Battle of the Ironclad. Others preferred the fleet that never stood a chance. But everyone knew this was more than just a battle. It was a message. The galaxy had underestimated humanity. They had looked at Earth and seen a young, small, untested race. Now, after today, they would see something else. A predator with teeth sharper than anyone had guessed. A species that could build a warship like the Ironclad, and a captain who could wield it without fear. The retreating Zorath ships disappeared into hyperspace one after another. Some didn't even wait for their allies. The Ironclad emerged from hyperspace into the calm darkness between the stars. The battle was far behind them now. But the echo of it was already racing through the galaxy. Every surviving Zorath ship carried the story, and every captain who had fled would repeat it, a story of a single human warship that stood against an entire fleet and never faltered. Inside the Ironclad, the crew worked in silence. They were tired, but their movements were steady. No one spoke about the number of ships they had destroyed. No one boasted about the impossible victory because they all understood. This battle was not just about winning, it was about showing the galaxy who they were. Captain Rourke stood at the center of the bridge. The stars stretched endlessly ahead of him. His first officer approached quietly. "Sir, word is spreading." "Fast," she said. "Intercepted cum chatter from 3 different sectors already. They're calling us." She hesitated, as if the name felt heavy in her mouth. The ghost of Ironclad Rourke didn't react. He simply looked out at the stars. "Let them talk," he said. "That's the point." Across the galaxy, the tale grew with every telling in the outer colonies. Miners said the human ship had been invisible until it fired in merchant spaceports. Traders swore the Ironclad had destroyed ships without even aiming. Military councils, alien generals argued about what weapon could possibly erase a battleship in one shot. Some claimed it was ancient tech stolen from a dead civilization. Others whispered that humans had finally unlocked forbidden physics. No one agreed on the details, but all agreed on one thing. The Ironclad was untouchable in the Zorath Empire's High Council. The mood was tense. Holograms of the destroyed fleet floated in the air. Commanders argued in raised voices. One slammed his fist on the table. "This cannot be. No single ship could do this without help." Another leaned forward, eyes dark. "It happened. We have survivors who saw it with their own eyes." The council fell silent. If the Ironclad was real, and clearly it was, then the balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted. Back on the Ironclad, the crew began to relax for the first time in hours. Some gathered in the mess hall, speaking quietly over warm food. Others simply sat alone, staring at nothing. The youngest crew member, a communications technician named Hal, broke the silence at his table. "My brother won't believe this," he said softly. One of the engineers chuckled. "No one will believe it. And that's exactly why they'll be afraid," in a quiet corner of the bridge. The navigation officer plotted their course toward Earth. He glanced at Rourke. "Sir, When we return home, the fleet will want a full report. Rourke nodded. They'll get one, but the truth will be selective? The officer raised an eyebrow. You don't want them to know everything? No, Rourke said firmly. Some things are more useful as mysteries. The captain understood the power of reputation. A weapon's strength was measured not only by what it could do, but by what people thought it could do. If the galaxy feared the ironclad as unstoppable, then in many battles, fear alone would win before the first shot was fired. Already, the myth was forming. Some alien survivors claimed the ship was crewed by ghosts. Others swore it had no crew at all, that it was an AI god that chose its own targets. Some said it could vanish into another dimension and strike from anywhere. The ironclad itself said nothing to confirm or deny these stories. And that silence only made the legend grow. On a small world at the edge of Zorith space, a young alien soldier listened to the broadcast about the battle. He turned to his friend and whispered, "If this is what one human ship can do, what happens when they send 10? The friend didn't answer, because the question didn't need an answer. Back aboard the ironclad, the bridge was quiet again. The hum of the engines filled the air. The crew knew this victory would not end. The war, it might even start new ones, but they also knew that from this day forward, any enemy commander would think twice before challenging a human ship. Captain Rourke took one last look at the fading wreckage on the tactical display. He didn't smile, didn't speak. He simply turned away and walked back to his command chair. "Helm," he said calmly, "take us home." The ironclad slipped back into hyperspace, leaving behind a graveyard of ships, and carrying with it a legend that would spread faster than any fleet could travel, a legend that would echo through every star system, a legend with a single, unshakable truth. One warship had faced an entire fleet, and the fleet never stood a chance.